And I think we are live. I always mess up this transition. This is the best time, the best way I've actually managed this transition. So
crushed it.
every time I get a little bit better. Welcome, David. How are you?
Doing great, Andreas. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Thank you for making the time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to corpdev.ninja. You'll notice that I changed it from BizPod to CorpDev. A slight branding change because I realized all we do is really talk about corporate development. Why the generic BizPod slogan? So it is corpdev.ninja. It is the 11th episode every Thursday or Friday around noon, 25 minutes from top business ninjas and corporate development ninjas from around the world, giving us words of wisdom, truths from the trenches. And we've got David Moricca here. How are you, sir? It looks like you are alive and well. Everything's good?
I am alive and well, yeah, staying healthy.
How are you managing? I've been asking every single guest kind of how are you managing and coping during COVID? Like, what are you up to these days aside from, being fully invested in your business?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working more than ever actually during COVID. But, what's nice is we as a family, we actually came out to the Midwest during the summer where my wife's family is from. We have two kids, 10 and 8 years old. And they've actually had one of the best summers of their life. I mean, they said they've had so much fun because they've been able to, quarantine, but with family members and spend time with cousins and grandparents in a way that they wouldn't normally be able to do. So that's been good for them. It's also been good for us. So it's good.
That's amazing. I can just imagine if I were a kid during this time, back during when we were kids, we had Nintendo and Sega Genesis. I was addicted as a child before to video games. My dad would often hide the cable when I played too much. But I'm like, if I were in this environment, 8, 10, 12, I probably would just be playing video games 24/7.
For sure. For sure.
So everyone, David Moricca is the founder and CEO of Socialive, an enterprise video creation and live streaming SaaS platform. Trusted by organizations from startups to Fortune 100s, Socialive brings unprecedented ease and scale to high-quality video content creation for teams across the enterprise. And a footnote for folks, I love the platform so much, we're actually streaming through it. So Socialive is the platform that I stream through. So hats off, David, for that. With 15 years of leadership and innovation in digital media, David is helping drive and shape the video-first communications revolution in business. Before Socialive, David helped launch Scholastic's first digital learning platform and worked as a strategy consultant at McKinsey Company. A New Jersey native, David holds a BA from UNC Chapel Hill and JD from Harvard Law School. Pretty impressive background and pretty diverse, David.
Yeah, it has not been a straight path.
Yeah. So we've got a few questions here. Again, it's a 25-minute show, but I think at this point we're at 22 minutes. I encourage folks who are watching live on LinkedIn to submit any questions live, and I will take a look and we'll see which ones we'll lay up for David. But in the meantime, it is interesting. I've had a few friends who've gone to law school and who have switched into business, and they all have their own reasons for that. And so curious, why the switch? You went to Harvard Law School. Why the switch? Usually when you spend all that time, you're pretty much invested in that. And there's a lot of work. It's super academic. And then you go typically to big law. But I have noticed some of the most impressive folks and friends and colleagues that I've come across in business actually did that transition. They went to law school and then went into business. But what was your reason?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I think for about a decade after I didn't practice law, my parents were still like, "So why again did you go to law school?" And I had to explain. When I was a young kid, I always wanted to go to law school, and not for any particular reason. It was just like something that was in my mind. Oh, I need to go to law school. Right. And as I went through college, I was still interested in law, but my interests had gotten more diverse. I was interested in public policy, international policy, even kind of like government affairs. So. But I also had a business interest. And as I talked to a couple mentors in college, I realized that law school was a place that, would give you diversity in terms of options when you came out. I never practiced law. So I did half a summer at a law firm in between my first and second year of law school. That was my only real practicing, if you will, if you want to call it that. I did take the New York State bar.
What was the internship or the summer? Like, what was your focus?
It was actually pretty fun. So I did half a summer at the law firm O'Melveny and Myers in Washington, D.C. Yeah. And I spent the second half of the summer at AOL. And at this time, AOL was a powerhouse. It was actually, they just were about to just acquired Time Warner. So it was the heydays of AOL. And I actually worked with some of the corporate affairs, biz dev guys. They were doing deals like every day. And it was a taste of that I'm like, all right, I like the business development side a lot more than I'd like the paperwork and contract drafting side.
Right. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Which makes, I always find, killer BD and corp dev ninjas are those who often have a law background, because devil's in the details, and a lot of it's contract law, right, and kind of being able to strategize from a business development perspective when you're deal making. What are all the various nuances? So tell me about Socialive. Tell me a little bit, and our viewers, about the company, why you founded it, and the mission.
Yeah. Well, first, I'll just give you a quick overview of what Socialive is, as you described it up front. It's a technology platform that's really focused on the enterprise and helping enable enterprises to more easily create video content. Like, historically, video content's really hard to produce anywhere, but certainly at these enterprise organizations. We simplify the capture of video, the content creation, and ultimately the live distribution as well. But, it hasn't been a straight path to getting to this place. Like, Socialive was 3 different companies, if you will, before we got here, meaning we pivoted 3 major times before we became Socialive.
And this is after McKinsey, right? So after
so I went to McKinsey. Yeah. I went to McKinsey, and then I spent 5 years at Scholastic, the children's publishing and educational company. Kind of got this idea to start a company, which initially was in the music space. It was an online music creation platform that then pivoted into streaming, and then ultimately became a video streaming platform. At the time, wasn't focused on the enterprise, but it just found its way there. And what's interesting is we never raised venture capital or any institutional capital. So we are investor backed, but we still don't have any institutional capital in the business.
Yeah. Great. Tell me, what was the inspiration for starting this business? Tell me a little bit about your pivots and how you got to where you got. So what inspired you? And you got into that a little bit, but like, tell me a little bit more about like what inspired David to really start this.
Well, yeah. So what has always inspired me is the idea of like connectivity. How do you make it easier for folks to communicate, connect, tell their stories? Like, that's been kind of something I'm passionate about since I was young. And so video and video storytelling was a natural kind of evolution. The company initially started as an online music creation platform for kids, so enabling kids to make music online.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did it have the same name?
No, it was called Breakout Band.
Breakout Band. I like the name.
Yeah, one of my old original team members just resurrected the logo recently. It was like an American Idol type logo with like people jumping out. It was hilarious. Cool product. Got some passionate adoptees. Yeah. But it was also the kind of platform that I knew wouldn't scale. And at the time, streaming was, live streaming was getting hot. Online electronic music was getting hot. So we pivoted into live streaming, but for electronic music. What's that?
What year was this?
Yeah, so we pivoted in 2012 into a platform called Mixify, which was an online music platform for electronic music artists. And they could stream DJ sets virtually. We started streaming DJs 2-way into venues. So from LA into like Vietnam, and LA into Buenos Aires and things like that. And that's where we started building a lot of the hardcore video streaming technology and the 2-way capability of interactivity. And then Facebook Live launched in 2016. And once that launched, we started getting requests from companies to use our technology to broadcast into Facebook Live. And that's when we realized, all right, what we really are is a solution to help companies take advantage of distribution channels they already had: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, internal channels, external channels, make the video streaming part easier, and ultimately became video content creation more broadly.
Interesting. And so what was the first channel that you focused on? Was it Facebook or
Facebook Live? Yeah. Late 2016, Facebook Live launched their beta. We were one of the first external streaming platforms to integrate with Facebook Live.
Yeah.
We at the time we weren't even called Socialive yet, but we started doing outbound, to prospects. Hey, do you need a solution for Facebook Live? And the demand was immediate. Like we heard from like 15 companies in the first week when we went outreach. I was like, okay, we have now transformed what we are. This is what we're going to be.
And so how did companies first? That's a great story, by the way, David. And I like the path to kind of where you are and completely see all that value in enterprise companies wanting and demanding to have a platform like you guys. So what were some of the requests? What are some of the things that you guys provide enterprise clients with? Like, what are the top requests? Because I know it's not, I know even though I'm using it for podcasting, this is not really your real business, but your real business is enterprise, I guess.
Yeah, our real business is enterprise, but the way you're using it is definitely a core use case, which we still have a lot of core customers who adopt Socialive, at least initially, from marketing departments and communications departments for use across, social communication. So LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. We are a platform that makes it easy to create that high quality on brand content for those channels and distribute that seamlessly. But in the last several months in particular, really the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of adoption on different use cases which have only accelerated with COVID. First would be like remote production and remote content capture. So Socialive has an ability to kind of enable folks to capture content with guests in different locations, capture really high quality video content, then be able to repurpose through Socialive or through their own, post-production workflow. But that it really facilitates more scalable content creation, which is a very big challenge at organizations. That's a big use case. Virtual events has been another big use case. Yeah.
Can you give me a real life example today?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like what we have going on so that folks understand or can visualize it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we work with a lot of media and entertainment companies, for example. So like literally linear TV production companies who use the same green room environment that you and I are connecting in, not to necessarily broadcast that content out, but to get celebrity talent in a room together, have a conversation, capture that video at the highest quality. And we also don't only capture the video of the composite that we create, we capture each individual isolated feed from every guest. What that enables is those post-production teams to take that content, create new linear TV programming or new digital TV, digital kind of video content and publish it out across their channels. So it's really around content production for those companies.
Got it. And what about you mentioned some live events too that that's also another kind of hot area of growth for the company.
Yeah, massive. So as you can imagine with COVID-19, pretty much all events have moved virtually, and all organizations have quickly tried to figure out how they're going to execute virtual events. With that, a number of big virtual events platforms have emerged, both kind of existing ones, like the more traditional webinar platforms like On24 and Global Meet, which is formerly called TalkPoint, but also new ones like Hopin and Cvent just launched their new virtual events platform called Engagement Hub. And the idea is these are immersive virtual environments to host, experiences. You think about it as webinar, but now it's full-on conferences, ongoing internal halls, external communications content.
What does that look like? Like, what's an example?
Well, so they all look a little different. All the platforms look a little different. Something like a Hopin or a Cvent are much more kind of, modern, like kind of really modular, easy to use platforms. They're similar to Socialive in that way in terms of, being easy to use video platform. And then there's like the more kind of deeper webinar platforms, like On24 and TalkPoint. But Socialive is essentially a video platform that sits on top of those. So we can broadcast seamlessly into all of those channels, as well as the companies, that use Socialive can have access to all the video content after the event to quickly repurpose that across their email marketing, social marketing, digital marketing channels. But as virtual events as everything moves virtually right now in terms of events.
So one question that I'm sure that I've had, and what people probably think, what is a virtual event? I know when I go to an actual event, like I see tables, I see people. Like, is a virtual event like a PowerPoint presentation, or do you get to see people, or do you put like Oculus VR, glasses on? What is a virtual event?
Well, it all depends, right? How you're doing it. But in the enterprise, I think there's a collapsing right now between the webinar, the town hall, and more of the like large conference type event. Like they're all event experiences, right? And so as a result, companies are looking internally and say, what's our digital event strategy? So it's no longer like, hey, we're going to do 2 big events a year and get all of our customers and stakeholders there. We're going to have an always on digital event strategy, because COVID's changing the way we engage with our customers, we engage with our internal employees. So new platforms are cropping up that create these more immersive environments where you have chat, pollings, Q&A, and Socialive. As important to that experience is the video experience that you're delivering into there. So we make the connection between the presenters who are presenting high quality content, where people are looking for something higher quality than a Zoom meeting, to broadcast into those environments.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah, I have seen a lot more of these events like cropping up, and even for consumers as well. So companies like, and some of them are pretty interactive. Like there's like logos and graphics. You can go into
sponsor
different
booths.
So another question I have then, what's the wisdom, some business wisdom you can give us, and myself in particular, in closing large enterprise clients? So it sounds like that is your that's the focus of the business, or a large part of the focus, and you must be really talented at getting and closing large enterprise clients. Tell me a little bit about your method.
Well, look, I think first and foremost, it always starts with the product and the product market fit. So yeah, I might be able to tell the story, but I look at, our CTO, Ben Davenport, our lead front-end engineer, Mike Orth, our lead mobile engineer, John Michaelich, and that team, that engineering team, they put a product out there that makes it really easy to sell. So it always starts with, do you have the right product? Do you have the right market fit with that product?
Sure.
If you have that, actually a lot gets easier. But the key when you're dealing with Fortune level enterprises is, look, it's about selling a solution and listening and understanding their pain points and being able to apply the solution to their pain points. It's about unlocking a bigger strategy. You're not selling a widget here. If you want to get a long-term relationship with a large pharma company, a financial services behemoth, you can't just sell a widget. You need to solve a solution that will kind of scale across their needs. You also, those teams are also looking for partnership. So you have to have a partnership mindset, which means you need to be open to something not closing in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, but it might take 3 months or 4 months. That's okay. You're building a foundation for a long-term relationship with a lot of value built into that relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. But how do you even get into these enterprises? Let's say, there's Fortune 100 company X, there could be, they're considering it, or you think they would be a good candidate to consider Socialive. How do you actually engage? Do you see whether you have friends who work there? Do you send a random email? Do you go on LinkedIn? For me, I always say, of course, you need to have a great product. But when you do business, you're doing business with people. People are who you do business with and closing business development deals with. And so if you think about the people aspect, like how do you go and speak to the right decision maker? It all ends with the right person. And Fortune 100 companies, they're big. Oftentimes they're bloated. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of overlap. Yeah. And so you could be stuck in, business development purgatory if you don't hit the right target from the outset. How do you go about Company X? I think this would be a great, proposition for the company, a good BD deal for the company. How do you go about it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, we've been lucky to have a lot of inbound flow in over the last 6 months to 12 months, but you're right. Like at the end of the day, a lot of how you get in there is by, tenacity and focus. And you start with as an entrepreneur, when you don't have it handed to you, you have to go build your lane, right? So you have to not be afraid to kind of reach out and make those connections. So I've been really lucky because we are investor backed. We have I think 30 to 40 high net worth individuals in this company. And between my network and their network, look, I don't mind asking. If I want to get connected to a large financial services company, a large insurance company, I just make the ask. And generally speaking, you want to get to, a senior enough person that they can be an influencer, or at least to start the conversation. They may not even be the buyer.
What does that mean, a senior enough person in your mind?
Well, at these large enterprises, I think director and above really helps. Certainly, if you can get to a VP or a C level, then you're even, in a really good spot. The buyers are typically going to be vice president and above. So, you want to ultimately be on their radar and be able to tell the big story to them. But ultimately, you also have to connect with the actual users who are going to be not necessarily at that level in terms of, having the buying power. But yeah, look, you have to write that concise email. I think what's really key is, quickly, succinctly talking about what your product solves, like in a sentence or two. But also, what's really helpful is being able to give social proof. Like if you do have customers that are of that level, it immediately kind of solves the question of, hey, is this company legitimate? When you name those customers and you can actually speak to it intelligently, it removes that from the table. And then already people are more open to having a conversation. So getting those initial customers, really, really important to help kind of open the seas for you for the next set.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I totally agree with all of that. One question I have then, let's say you hit a roadblock with an enterprise customer. You've given demonstrations, it's several months in, you've kind of traded some contracts, some high levels, you've done like every business development person has experienced at some point or another, like, okay, we're at 100% close. And then all of a sudden it stalls for no apparent reason. What do you do?
Well, first of all, a deal is never dead until someone says no, and even no means not now. So you got to always have that mindset that, if you want it, you gotta continue to figure out a way to make it happen. I think a lot of it is being strategic. Like I think that, you can't keep pounding the same, door the same way each time. Like as you're going back to the people that maybe where there's a roadblock, you got to keep providing value or some reason they need to kind of reopen that door. The other thing is you should not, when you're going at these organizations, you can't put all your relationships in one basket or all your eggs in one basket. You got to try to have touch points elsewhere and ways to kind of maneuver within the organization so that if, say, you're going to communications, but you're hitting a roadblock there, well, at least in our case, learning and development or, kind of digital marketing or, corp comms, maybe other areas that we can be exploring. So try to have multiple touch points.
I love that. That's a technique that I often, depending on the size of the company and who my original contact person was, I often do employ that same strategy of multiple touch points if I need. Final question. You said you're investor back from your original team and some of your original investors, but how did you manage the original fundraising of Socialive, and how are you thinking about fundraising in the future?
Yeah. So my initial funder was actually a family of a law school classmate of mine, a former Michigan guy, University of Michigan guy as well. So even though my wife is a Buckeye, good things still come out of Michigan. But yeah, I mean, his family invested early when it was breakout band and just a concept on paper. Somehow we survived that phase. And along the way, we've been able to pick up investors who were connected to each other. And look, for most of the journey, those investors were investing in the vision, bits and pieces of traction, and their belief that somehow I would figure it out, that I would just basically, one way or another, figure this thing out. And they also probably recognize this is the highest risk part of their portfolio and it probably wouldn't return. Now, they're all engaged at this point because the business is really kind of exploded. I mean, we doubled the revenue of the business from Q1 to Q2. We'll probably double again from Q2 to Q4, and then probably another doubling again in the first half of next year. So this business is on a tear. We are also we're only 34 people. Like this company could easily be double the size and there's more to build from there. So, we are exploring the next phase of the business from a capital perspective, from a growth perspective. But the exciting thing is the company's profitable. We can invest from existing cash flow very easily. And we are building out the leadership team as well as the rest of the organization as we speak. So even independent of what we do next.
Amazing. Well, if and when you get to that next funding tranche and point, make sure you reach out to me.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. We'll do.
A few closing questions or, some fun questions. What are you typically eating during COVID? I mean, everyone has a different
Yes. Answer. All right. Well,
some people are great chefs. Some folks have realized that they're not so good.
I'm not. My wife is quite good, but I'm not. I have been in Cleveland for much of the summer with my wife's family, and my wife is Indian, and we eat almost mostly Indian vegetarian food every night, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, my wife's mother is one of the best preparers of food, cooks I've ever had, actually. So I'm very fortunate.
Amazing. Are you having any particular curries or?
Oh, mostly like simple dals and vegetable subgis, but full of flavor.
Amazing. I've been to India probably 5 or 6 times, a couple times for a wedding and a few times in Mumbai for business. And one of my favorite countries and cuisines in the world. Definitely
it's so good.
One of the best. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, it's like it's incredible. It's a dream cuisine. What are you how are you exercising? How are you staying fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually during COVID, I feel like we've been exercising more than before that. Used to go to a gym, my wife as well. Obviously not doing that anymore. And I don't think I'll go back to a gym after this. We have been using Equinox Veris app to do these kind of interactive, semi-interactive because they're not live programs. And man, those workouts crush. Sometimes using the Nike app as well. Jogging as much as possible in between those days. But yeah, it's been pretty good.
Got it. Yeah, everyone has a different program. I've been doing a bunch of cycling. Nice. I like to walk just in general. Some HIIT workouts, and then several apps fit on for me has been pretty good. Final question. Do you have time to watch Netflix or any of the streaming platforms, Disney Plus or Amazon? Is there anything? I mean, I've gone through most of my content. Basically, all I do is like work, exercise, and then watch some content on the weekends and the evenings. What's the latest thing you like?
Yeah, so we've actually been going back a little bit. So there are a bunch of series that I did not see when they were hot. First, you're being blown away by this West Wing. Didn't watch it when it was popular.
I haven't watched it either.
It's fantastic. It actually gives you hope again for America, which is, we're in a tough time. And then secondly, Sopranos. Never watched Sopranos. We're in the second season of Sopranos. Fantastic show, like absolutely phenomenal. Yeah,
Sopranos is incredible. I did watch it. Does it feel a little weird that it's so long ago? Does it feel a little strange that, I mean, are there nuances where you're like, hey, this feels like 15, 20 years old, or you're just like, this is awesome?
First of all, I'm like, it's awesome still. Like Gandolfini is incredible. But what I find really interesting as I watch that, and like obviously at least one person dies in a gruesome fashion every episode. But I watch and I'm like, oh my God, this is nothing compared to where we are right now. Like it feels actually light to me, not entirely light, but not nearly as like kind of harsh as both content and reality are right now in this country.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare like Game of Thrones, some of the murder scenes there versus Sopranos, completely different. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
So we watched the first couple episodes of it about 3 years back, maybe. Didn't get hooked on it. I've heard over and over again that you got to get past like episode 3, and then you're in.
Episode 3, I always say 100% episode 4. If you're going back and you're open to kind of older genres or series that as you are, you got to watch Breaking Bad. Right? Guarantee you, like after 3 or 4, certainly after 4, you're going to be hooked.
Yeah, that's what we've heard. So maybe we'll do it. But it's dark though. We don't want to add more darkness.
Well, I mean, you're watching Sopranos, so. All right. Thank you so much, David. Hold on, my screen went out. Oh, there we go. End of our show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. CorpDev.Ninja every Thursday or Friday, 25 minutes from business leaders, business ninjas, Corp Dev ninjas from around the world. And on episode 11, you heard that here today with David Moricca from Socialive, founder and CEO. Thank you, David.
Thanks so much for having me, Andreas. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Now let's see if I don't mess up this transition.
You got it.